post-production on Transformers Legacy. This isn't any making footage, really, because it's not really making footage. Spike Witwicky, from about Act 2 all the way through the end, whenever Spike Witwicky appears, his head went like this, all the way through it. I'm not going to redo all of his audio just because his head was all screwed up in the shot. So what you're going to do is you're going to get the figure out, put him on the thing, and just film, and just, I guess you just, against one of the backdrops, just do a close-up of him, a half close-up, all the way through of Spike's character, the Bumblebee, looking with his head correctly. 10 minutes of it, just staring with his head correctly, and then dub the audio in. Either that or you do that and the audio. But, wow, okay, so that's like a third extra act that would have to, that would just waste a lot of film. So, my advice with that scene is just film, no audio, just video of Spike just for like 10 minutes, staring at a wall, and take that 10 minutes of footage and put it throughout the entire film. Every time he's screwed up, just there, blink, and time to, as if he's in a different room, remember recording it. Spike in the Bumblebee outfit. Nobody else is that screwed up, but he's that screwed up. They did something similar with the Joes and the other one. Got up to part 3, and part 3 then gets up to about 22 minutes, and then it's the raw G.I. Joe footage to cut into the G.I. Joe stuff. I didn't want to mess with the raw reconstruction footage in the second level of editing, so I just left it there, so you'll know where to put it in. Yeah. This is Spike for like 5 minutes, staring at nothing. Okay, that's what we're gonna do. I think I'm gonna leave, like Spike and Chip and Daniel in their costumes, and we don't actually see them inside their costumes through the entire thing after Act 1. It's because they're all on the ship the whole time, and there's never any air outside the ship. It is a little awkward in the movie that happens, but it would be weird if suddenly, unlike the G.I. Joes who are in the mecha and they say they're in the mecha, these other guys never say they're in a mecha, but they are. So I think I'm going to leave that. All I'm going to fix is Bumblebee's impossible moments here. Him not reacting to stuff. It's just, so this is going to be live, just the Bumblebee. Because, yeah. This is Calicat the Calicatster, and this is sort of it's not really an after show, but I did just watch Transformers Lexicons, The Quest to Move Planets, and it is awesome. And there's so much going on in this story that it almost is a series, a mini-series. Now with the time change, we lost an hour last night, the time change, and apparently greenlit, because of lost an hour, greenlit continuation of the Transformers story. Not necessarily at the Star Trek one, but this is not a crossover with the Star Trek one. But the Transformers one does have potential to have at least one more story in the Transformers Legacy saga. This time, however, in order to speed production along, just in case other events happen that might suck in a week or two or more, they were not going to use a script, which is probably a bad idea. But we used to do that back in the day on the fly. So we'll try to complete the Legacy saga of the different stories and events and ideas of the story. we were originally there was barely an idea about the Robotechs and the other ones. But let's talk about this story first off before we go on to that one. So we have a about it's 99 minutes long, and this was scripted, and it was a little bit based on the kind of like similar to the Star Trek script. You had some characters going in and out of space time and in Dementia Planet or whatever, going into other dimensions and stuff like that, and thinking things through. So the Star Trek one is self-contained, so we don't need to do a sequel to that necessarily. Do something else with that. That was self-contained. It was wrapping things up. Whereas this one, because it ends with them kind of suggesting a similar hero is reborn in the story, that they kind of left it open, and didn't want to do that. I don't want to have a story where fans decades later are fussing over what happened to these other characters, what happened to them, what did they do. Yeah, don't need to do that necessarily, but I felt like there's more. There's a lot more out there. There's probably another 2 movies worth. So the unthinkable Acacia Studios would be the only way that would work is if we just over the next couple of days just shoot a lot of footage and then put it together. It's crazy. Mark's Cards would say don't do that and all that. But here we have a story scenario. We have a slightly different universe than the Space Bridge one and the Robotech one. Even though similar Robotech events happened to them, this episode appears to take place in a slightly different timeline, where it's more like the Earthrise timeline and the Kingdom timeline, and they've been pulled into the other universe to help them out. Sort of a multiverse thing. I do multiverses way different than Marvel does. As Mark's Cards and I were discussing this on Thursday, how to properly bring a legacy character or a fan service character into a fan film, not making it stupid. Now, in you own the toy for one thing. That's the best way. But you have like in those Mandalorian shows and the Osaka shows. I didn't see Osaka or the She-Hulk or whatever, or where you bring in more like the Mandalorian one where they introduced Cad Bane. That was the example I used. This character is from the games and some of the Rebels, and they threw him into the end of the story because they'd run out. You could tell they were just cheaping out, and they ran out of ideas, and they had 3 episodes shot of Mandalorian Season 3 they couldn't use, which is why Mandalorian Season 3 starts like it's in the middle of something. Because it was literally in the middle of something. Literally into this weird, like, esoteric, messed up, like, Book of Boba Fett, which Mark's Cards apparently saw some of, and was like, oh god, it's worse than you said. And it's like, no, he got swallowed by a sand butt, he's gone. It actually got worse. By the last 2 episodes of that, they just decided, we'll just make it Mandalorian with Boba Fett there in the background. Because they ran out of ideas. So they threw in Cad Bane, and then it was Mandalorian from there. And they shot the cowboy guy, who's Clint Cowpoke character. Inspired by Clint Cowpoke. That wasn't him. And Bane, so they got to fight Cad Bane at the end. It's like, why is this little blue alien bad guy? And it's like, with a cowboy hat. That's the whole shtick. That is not the way to introduce a new bad guy to a story. If you're setting up a miniseries that's only supposed to play for 1 season, you don't bring in the MacGuffin bad guy in the last 2 or 3 episodes, literally the last 2 episodes, to be in a different movie. And you don't bring Mandalorian in there either. You don't bring the other hero in there either to fight him, because that makes no sense. Why would they do that? Yeah, that's not how you do it. You do it like they do it in the Calicat Transformer story. You're like, okay, I wanted to do a 90-minute story where they decide, okay, we're Autobots on this space station in this slightly different timeline, events in this timeline are slightly earlier. So it's not a mistake that it's 2024 in the story, and they think it's 2024. The Robotech story has a slight mistake in that it's 2025 when they take off. It shouldn't be. It should be late 2024. So the Robotech one is wrong. It's 2024. Or it's a different timeline. Or treat it as a different timeline. No big deal. Or there's a third option. It's not a different timeline. It's the same timeline, but the Transformers that are on Mars are not aware of what happened on the moon, and they haven't left yet. They just haven't left yet for their mission. They just haven't departed, and the moon and Mars are quite a distance away. They didn't find out until hours later. Maybe I can write that into this story somewhere and have them say, "Oh, shoot, sorry, you guys hadn't left yet." Maybe that's what's going on. But I'm not gonna do that because that's just like really trying to fix a fan service a year error that just didn't. Yeah, I wanted to be in 2024. That's what I wanted to do. It's not technically an error. It's what I wanted to do. I wanted to have it be a little before they left. That's all. I just thought it would be kind of cool. But with the Robotech story, yeah, that's already done. It's the Sentinels. It's a prequel sequel to Robotech, the Sentinel stories that we did last year, a couple months ago, about 6 months ago. I think it's about 6 months ago, and we wanted to have them be like lined up. So we're telling the Sentinel story in a slightly different universe where slightly things are happening even there. It's a different universe. It's not the Sentinels. It's a different version of the Sentinels with different good guys and bad guys. Okay, so if we were gonna do a legacy thing with it's always like a trilogy. It was kind of like a trilogy. I envisioned it being like, okay, we're gonna do a Star Trek and then a Transformers, and a Star Trek meets a Transformers. But then I was thinking the third one should probably not involve the Star Trek people because that's just weird. And have it be the Robotech people have returned. It's after they've returned, so it's years later for the third sequel. So it's kind of like Dune Book 2. No, Dune Book 3. Not really. Yeah, it's so there's a cosmic thing going on. It's not a Crisis on Infinite Earths. It's not quite that. It's not. That would be silly. It's not New 52. It's more like New 52. DC. It's more like that than Marvel. But there's a little Marvel in it. This story opens a can of worms about other characters in the other stories. It gets a little convoluted, but it's if you watch the all Transformers mush and lexicons, it all flows to a certain end. When you get to the end of all Transformers mush, and I watched it all again, you get to the all Transformers mush and pieces of it over and over, just chunks of it, but enough of it to know that okay, when you get to the end of that and Springer's dead, they were going to bring it back in lexicons. So you can have a whole lexicon series about Springer getting his greatest wish of being Springer's Prime and all that. It's kind of in the story, and it's like, well, that kind of doesn't make sense because why would he be begin a nod to Trans series and Trans 2. It's definitely a nod to that. This one is a nod to the Final Adventure, and again, and this at the City of Time Forgotten, that kind of thing, but sort of a weird time traveling thing. They have to go into the Forge of Solus Prime. That's really a cool idea. But unlike having it be like introducing a bad guy at the 11th hour, let's introduce the new guys and the bad guy and the good guy in the first few minutes. Let's have them say, "Oh, we're gonna go and not only is RC carrying the alien spark that could be the bad guy, like right away, but they're gonna revive Chip Chase from the end of Transtech and bring him back 14 years later, and reanimate his mind and personality in Robot. Bring him back. They bring him back, and he can then drive the Wrath ship because he's a protoform and he's a Terran." And I liked how they sort of retconned the idea of how the Terrans work in Earthspark, which I've seen, so that the Dinobots and the Constructicons and a lot of other guys are Terrans, technically. They were built on Earth, and they're Terrans. The Dinobots are also Terrans. So that's cool. Also, the Spark was retconned back into the other lore, but it was originally Beast Wars that thought of it, and Protoforms. And Beast Wars is supposed to be like originally 300 years after the events of the series, 300 years later, and then weirdly enough, Transformers Animated is 200 years later, and it's just kind of a mess that way because there's like another Prime in there that's a younger one, another Magnus. You don't need to do a lot of future Magnus stuff necessarily in this one. Because he's not in this one at all. But maybe in the next one. Maybe there's a version of him in the next one. But yeah, there's going to be a next one. I think we need to tell that other story. So, but yeah, there's going to be a next one. So we have we want to tell a Transformers 40th anniversary story because it's Transformers. We gave you a Robotech anniversary story last year, a little early. That's Sentinels trilogy. This will also be connected to Robotech, so the next one will be that. But in this story, we have the G.I. Joes and Chip and Spike and Daniel and his wife Jenna McLeod activating the space bridge thing. They're going to send this. They've sent the Autobots and the Decepticons ahead. They send 13 Autobots and Decepticons and 4 Neutrals, the Dinobots, through the warp gate to go and go to the Forge of Souls Prime and figure out what's going on, and then they have to bring the planet ship to the Forge of Souls Prime, and fix everything and put Cybertron back. They don't end up putting Cybertron back at the end of the story, so we have to do that. Can they even do that? Yeah. So so they do that and they blow up the forge thing with the planet ship, even though it should have been just transported there technically. But I mean, the universe is like, it kicks everything ahead. And there's your Robotech thing. Then it's not an error. It's that the universe with the Autobots shattered the universe when they were doing that and kicked everything ahead. So the Robotechs left several months later. That's probably what happened. Yeah, so we can explain our way around that, having this story take place, or say it's another universe. I don't think it's a deal breaker though. I think downloading it now, it's fine. It doesn't need to be. Nobody's gonna go, wait a minute. 6 months for you is not the 6 months for them necessarily, like in Star Trek, in Silly Trek. I think we can do something with that. It'd be very cool. Let an outline, and in order to finish production on something like another couple hours of that, you'd probably just want to like ad lib pretty much. Don't do that. But only because Mark's Cards hasn't written a script in years, and when he did, he took him forever to write a script. You'd always end up putting him too much details, being ADHD kind of, or not ADD. Whereas Calcat is Asperger's and autism, so he's got I got to put all the details in there and finish things up and get things done. So I wanted to continue that Transformer story. There's some exciting stuff in there. I'm not sure whether it's going to work. It might be more like a Terrence Malick trip where they're just like in a void where they're all together talking, and that's fine. I'm okay with that because I rarely show them transforming anyway. It's kind of cool. And it's almost like it. This movie reminded me of just watching like a condensed like OVA of Lexicons. It's just basically saying, they did an OVA movie version of Lexicons. There's a Lexicons movie basically, and this could be something else. It's something else. Even though we kind of did the Lexicons movie with a finale with the Tragic Kingdom 1 and 2, I think was the finale. Named after a song. To Move Planets. The working title of the next one is Duplicate Volume Online. Already. I have this. There's no shtick for the episode here, saying that in there. There was going to be a after credit sequence like Marvel. It was going to have a scene where they look at a computer screen, they find a file that says primary and another file that says all the other like missing Transformers on this file. It's not in the story and it's not going to be in the next one. But they look on the file, primary, and then there's Chip Chase, and then it's like, and like it clicks the file and it says duplicate volume online, indicating Chip transcended, but he's not gone, because he said, at the end of when he transforms himself in the story, he goes like, well, I'm transformed. And also, before he left, he said there's always a duplicate. It's a backup copy. There's always a backup copy. Because he downloaded, on Teletran 1, there's a backup copy. Also, I don't know if you want to use the problematic Ironhide figure again, because it's a shiny chest, which reflects everything off of it. So you can totally see the camera in the shot. Got a lot of the G.I. Joes out while I was watching the movie and looking at them, and some of the Robotechs. And I'm thinking the next one should probably... it's pseudo time travel just because it kind of would have to be, but sort of like ethereal time travel, like in the Nexus kind of thing, the Tesseract, or in the Bioship, which they analyzed a Bioship of a similar kind in the Star Trek stories, but this one is another one where they encounter the future versions of them and the past versions of them. I think at the end of the Sentinels trilogy there, you had two timelines that were discrete in the very, very ending scenes, where it was 2039 when they got back, but also 2053. And they went back to 2039 thanks to Primus, the Lion Primus, Leo Primus, interrupting and saying, thank me later. What's happening there? What's happening with that? Who's back and who's not? Who's thrown out of time, and as a result of all that goofy stuff going on? I would think it would be extremely confusing for them. But it's not the idea of the MacGuffin being, oh, we're gonna throw in a guy at the last minute. No, that the whole story would be like a trip like that. It's like a weird sort of, it's the ethereal plane of robots, and and they're all kind of there, and like multiples of other ones appear. There was going to be multiples of Kirk in the Star Trek one, and I was thinking, no, that doesn't work there, because Q Kirk and all the other Q classic Trek guys that showed up in the story don't multiply themselves. It's the Cillians that do that. They're kind of Cillians, but at Transformers they totally do that, because it's the well of all sparks, all this stuff. And I doubt that they could have actually blown up the Forge at the end of the Planet story, even though they imply they do. Now, in the lore of the 13 Primes, they've combined two of the characters, an Alchemist and one other, Onyx and one other. Onyx, I think, is the other one. They've only really established that Vector Prime, Alpha Trion, Quintus Prime from the other one, and Primus and Vector Sigma are the Primes in the story. So they've only established about 4 or 5 of them. There's supposed to be 13. And Optimus Prime, of course, is 13th. They're the reincarnated versions of them. They're essence of them. There was even a nice new video thing, the basics of how that works, of Sparks. Somebody put up on their channel, and explaining how that works. The Sparks came later. Aspects of Primus. I tend to provide the idea that in the Transformers lore, the fantasy lore of the story, that Primus, and I like how this story expands on that, in that they're like, well, Primus and the other created the 13 that were first, the first 13, and Quintus went on to create the Chrysons, and Amalgamus went on to create the Transformers and the Transformation Cogs. And then the other ones helped out on them and messed with them and stuff. The other ones messed with them. 3 of them are like Decepticons. There's a Trickster one. There's a lady one that's a Prime, sort of a Lilith kind of Decepticon Autobot kind of lady. She was the Solus Prime, and the Forge of Solus Prime and all that. And what was cool about this story that just did is that the premise of that is that they it wasn't just a hammer that she had that created the Forge of Solus Prime like in Transformers Prime. That's merely a weapon she created. Like she created the Star Saber and the Requiem Blaster. The Requiem Blaster is basically like Megatron's fusion cannon. That's a Requiem Blaster. It's like the Skyfire's cannon in 1986 story as well. So in Trans. So I was using the Requiem Blaster as well. Right early on, and there was a Star Saber as well. Voltron has one. That's similar, kind of fun. But yeah, the Forge of Solus Prime hammer. I don't really use the hammer too much, although he kind of had the hammer in that one episode. So. Prime has the hammer as well, so it's kind of funny. And then the other Magnus in Transformers Prime had the hammer, which they used to bring Prime back with the power of Solus Prime. And I liked how in the version of the story you kind of made it so okay, the space demigods that were the 13 that Primus created were actually way bigger than they said they were, and way more into building stuff than they were. And Solus Prime built a solar system. They re-engineered. Well, it said something like in the script, they tore apart a solar system and constructed a space gate the size of Jupiter, and they harvested the power of a neutron star in order to construct unlimited transformer stuff. And that the Forge of Solus Prime wasn't just the hammer. The Forge of Solus Prime is where they built Cybertron. Cybertron was built there and sent out into the galaxy. Oh, that makes it sound even more impressive and ridiculously big. And that actually retcons, yes, Call of the Primitives, which is not listed in the credits, because it's just Transformers. Call of the Primitives was the episode where they go to visit Daikini, the creator of Unicron. And I always thought that was kind of stupid, even back then in 87. And he didn't create Unicron; he unleashed Unicron. He opened the space bridge to Solus Prime. That makes more sense. That's like, okay, that makes more sense. He unleashed him, basically let him out. Wasn't supposed to do that. Unicron may have encouraged him to do that. Him and Wrath and Tornadron. Now Tornadron was that beast of matter. The energy that really didn't make any sense. But Call of the Primitives was actually a sort of a fun animated show that was done by the people who did the movie, and it looked really, really cool. And the rest of the animation in season 3 was substandard compared to that, because that one episode did that one. Also, I think they worked on Dweller in the Depths and some of the other ones earlier. But yeah, and Dweller in the Depths is considered one of the pre-ultimate episodes, and anyone's involving the Predacons is considered the pre-animate episodes that led to the Beast Wars era. So, just all that lore. And yeah, so the Primes, the 13 Primes, they've only Quintus Prime is in his Ember Stone is his thing. The Fallen Megatronus is the Fallen, and he has the. But there's another guy with the darts. The Liege Maximo has the darts. And Liege Maximo, we've seen his base in my fan films. We've seen his bases and his stuff that he built in the Liege Maximo Empire, where he built that. He built the Kendrick Firelight system and all that stuff. That's where the Shrybats of Dromedon. That's where Dromedon is. We get to see Dromedon in that story, Transformers Corrosion of War Without End. They did not name the planets in the original story by Robert Powers. I named them Tornadron and Firelies and everything. After Firelies is named after my first model rocket that blew up on the launch pad. That's Firelies. I named that system after that. Also, Kendrick is named after Will Kendrick, the bizarre friend from the cast that New Marked Cards, who was way back in the day at Silver Creek after Pine Hill, and then slightly at Evergreen after that. So because it's named after Will Kendrick. So that was one of ours. And yeah, and so they established that Liege Maximo as a group from Generation 2 are just the children of Liege Maximo instead of the children of Primus. They're sort of descended from Primus. They're all Cybertronians. They're all descended from Primus. But Liege Maximo would be like sort of like Greek tragedy, where it's like the children of the guys after Zeus. Like yeah, sort of like Persephone and everybody, and Hercules and all that stuff. Yeah, so it's sort of like that. It's sort of like, okay, he's like a lesser star system than Solus Primes, but it still is a star system they built. It's still pretty big, and they still have planets, and they're terraformed, or at least cyberformed. And yeah, it's big, the system they attack. And then they come to Earth and Cybertron. But yeah, that whole lore is kind of cool. I added to that, like way back then, and then this is just an expansion of that, and saying like, okay, the other ones that were built by other Transformers Primes included the titular episode, The Gate, and the Nadaric Gate. Two other Space Bridge Gate planet systems that were seen in toward the middle of lexicons were also built by some of the Cybertronian space gods. I'm presuming that because the Nadaric Gate was one of the other more tricky ones, it was probably Amalgamus that built that one. Amalgamus and Animus built the gate from the other story, Animus, and from the Beast Force one. The gate and the planet from that one, Animus, the other beast planet that was seen in that, and which was visually represented in Transformers: Rise of the Beasts. We got to see Unicron attack Amalgamus' station in '94. That story was a flashback to '94, and that was so cool. It got to say, oh, cool! They got Amalgamus' space bridge and Unicron. Yes, like it. Yeah, they were clearly watching our stuff. They were definitely watching. They had to be watching our fan films. Absolutely. And there, I've even mentioned that there was a cutscene, which they can see online, the cat's meowing. It's a cutscene of Transitron, Bussy Man Transitron, attacking Optimus Prime as a Decepticon. And they can go watch it. and he attacks him, and then Prime defeats him, and they walk away. It didn't fit in the movie. I can see why the director cut it out. It's like, why would he be fighting this transit bus Decepticon? Yeah, it didn't fit in the story. I think it would have been more fun had they made him had they put him at the museum as a school bus, and had it be like a school bus man, and he transforms. It's another Busamicon, and he transforms, and then he turns from school bus colors to gray, and he goes, "No, I am not school bus man. I'm jail bus bot." And it would have been, oh, okay, there's some deep trans lore there from G1. There's jail bus bot, and that would give Prime reason enough to fight jail bus bot. He'd be like, "Oh, okay, you're a Decepticon. You're not an Autobot." And he fights him. There you go. Another Carta. But yes, this isn't going to have everybody. This next one's not going to have everybody. Can't include everybody. That's ridiculous. Well, it's going to have a lot of G.I. Joes in it. Because this is the G.I. Joe one. But yeah, G.I. Joes and Robotechs. Time warp stuff. But here we can do multiples. We'll see what happens. I'm going to just film a lot of stuff over the next couple days and make a coherent story out of it. How about that? No attempt to do any. I'll just put in dialogue when it needs it. But yeah, it'll work. As long as you have an outline going. I'll come up with an outline. I'll do an outline. But yeah. Because the thing that slows down production of these serials back in the day, I was trying to adhere exactly to the script, every line, and with a Transformers story, you're kind of doing the same kind of stuff over and over. Kind of like saying, like, okay, we have two Decepticons plotting over here for like 2 pages. Okay, yeah, they're going to do that, and it's going to be really easy to follow dialogue. Or you have an Autobot and Decepticon kind of squaring off. You're going to do that for a page or so. Have a mystical, weird trip, dream thing. Usually about a page and a half. Sometimes longer. Maybe they're doing a journey or something. Yeah, so it's... Yeah, I want to do more. I want to do more and have it look trippy. And yeah, I just thought to go on about that for a little while, just to tell you about that. Yeah, because that's what I'm gonna do. Yeah, there needs to be more. So they didn't greenlight a Star Trek Legacy series. We greenlit a Transformer one right after the Star Trek one. Saying, this story, the Star Trek one is a lot of fun. And there certainly could be other ones of that, but it kind of wraps things up. It's kind of an ending, whereas this is a beginning. So that's kind of what it is. Yeah, it's a kind of an end. It's kind of a little more of... You could go on from there with the Star Trek story. You could have the adventures of Tam and Kestra at the Academy if you want. Do adventures on their ship. The Star Trek San Jose, the series, if you wanted to do that too. But I want to go back to the Transformers. That's where it started. That's what the figures we had first. And there's some stuff in there that I just want to tell. I want to tell it. So we're going to tell it. Yeah, should be fun. So transform and roll out. I'm not just ripping off Primal Prime. I'm ripping off Optimus Prime. Optimus Primal, yeah. The Rodimus Primal website, yeah. That's fun too. The guy in Jersey. Yeah, there should be a toy called Rodimus Primal. That would be awesome. Figuring he'd be like an orangutan or something. Instead of a gorilla, he'd be an orangutan. Yeah. Do it. Somebody draw that, if you haven't already. Not me, but someone else.